In my last video, I did a deep dive into the science behind mewing and orthotropics, where I covered Dr. Mike Mew and his current battle where he is fighting for the faces of the world. If you want to support Dr. Mike and his cause, the link will be in the bio, or you can go to the Orthotropics official YouTube channel or site to donate. In today's podcast, I do have a very special guest, one of the most brilliant minds in academia for health, greatest orthodontist in human history, and the father of orthotropics, Dr. John Mew. Before we start, if you want to grab my personal diet plan, my workout plan, my coaching, if you have any other questions or need advice, you can contact me on Zoom or Instagram. I'm also working on a whole range of evidence-based testosterone-safe products to help combat the issue of men's testosterone levels decreasing rapidly. These will be coming soon to the channel for you to check out, and as we now know from the evidence, your facial bone morphology can change from chewing firm gum. If you want to grab the Mastic gum that is evidence-based, all links will be in the bio below. Okay, so I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Professor Mew for coming onto the channel. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning.
Thank you. Now, guys, if you want to see part one of the documentary, the link is going to be in the bio down below. Now, before we get into the questions, how best can the community help your son, Dr. Mike Mew?
Well, anything that encourages the public to think, and the dental profession too, exactly what is happening. This is a new method which has very good results, which is being dismissed and indeed suppressed by the established orthodontists who have other methods. Their methods are largely mechanical, and Michael and my technique is biological, and you cannot treat a biological problem with mechanics.
Okay. I'll link a link down into the bio if anyone wants to support Dr. Mike through the Patreon as well, like I did on the last video. My first question was, is there a possible way to lengthen the ramus?
Yes, you can measure the ramus, the height of it, fairly accurately with X-rays, but I don't think that actually helps anyone.
Does chewing help lengthen the ramus by chewing on hard food like Price recommended?
I don't think so. I think the shape of the ramus is determined by the posture you hold the jaw in. I don't think the shape of the ramus has anything to do, or very little to do, with the food you eat, how hard it is, or really anything else. People just don't believe that the bones of the jaw are primarily controlled by posture. They just don't believe it, full stop. Therefore, they're always talking and thinking about things which will change it, including surgery.
Okay, my next question. How much should I chew Mastic gum, and does it help with getting hollow cheeks?
I think that the more hard things you chew, the better. I think gum chewing is useful, even if it is soft gum, but the harder the gum, the better. But certainly, the ancient humans, our ancestors, ground their food up, and it was very hard. It was so hard that the cusps of the teeth, you know what they are, the bit that stick up from the top of the teeth, they wore away within 2.5 years of the eruption of the tooth. And by the time the owner of the teeth, the individual, was 60 years old, they would have worn their first molars flat, level with the gum. That is a huge level of wear that you never get in modern humans, and that is why our jaws are such a different shape.
In regards to bruxism, do patients who actually have bruxism, they have a similar wearing down of the teeth where the teeth will end up going from being this to this in bruxism?
Yes. It's similar, but nothing like as severe.
With bruxism, what's the relationship between tongue posture and bruxism?
Tongue posture and bruxism, it's an indirect relationship. If you have bad tongue posture, then the cusps of your teeth don't all meet evenly. I'm looking at your face, and I am sure that when you bite together, not all of your teeth meet completely evenly.
The molars or the front? I can show you I've got...
Well, they are different. Some teeth meet more than others.
I
Not
do
much,
have
very
uneven teeth
slightly.
on the front, slightly on the
Yes.
on the
And
front side.
that is what, in my opinion, causes bruxism. It's caused by the position of the tongue affecting the tooth eruption mechanism. Now, I call that TEM, and every tooth naturally erupts until it meets something. It should be the opposing teeth, but it can just as easily be a thumb or a pencil or the tongue. All of those will disrupt natural occlusion, and that, I'm sure, is the cause of both malocclusion and bruxism.
What's the relationship between malocclusion and thumb sucking?
A very obvious one. The teeth are moved out of position.
So my next question, how would someone know that their palate has been moved from mewing?
How would they know if it was getting better or...
If their palate has split from mewing?
I think they would have to measure the width between their upper first molars. And that would have to be measured very accurately, because it will take a millimeter, perhaps, a year to widen it 1 millimeter. Maybe longer, maybe less, depending how well they were mewing.
Okay. Someone wanted to ask, why is there a deep line going through the middle of my palate? What is it?
The line down the middle of the palate, that is the central maxillary suture, and it remains open throughout life. It's really just to ensure that the maxilla can adjust to various situations during your lifetime. Until you stop growing, it progressively widens the upper jaw. When you reach puberty, it doesn't grow anymore, but it still becomes able to move, and that is why you can artificially widen the maxilla with a screw so that it pushes on each side and more bone will be laid down in the middle of the jaw, so you'll have a permanently wider upper jaw.
How much palatal expansion can be expected from a teenager?
Oh, 15 millimeters or more.
Okay.
Most of them only need 7 or 8.
Per year or in total?
Pardon?
Was that per annum or just in total 15 millimeters?
I have opened upper jaws 15 millimeters well, up until teenagers. After that, it is less, but you can still open it even up until the age of 60 or above.
How much maxillary upswing can I expect from mewing?
I don't use that term. It's Michael, my son's term. But basically, you're talking about the indicator line. Do you know what that is?
You're referring to this point here, this point here?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It's the distance between the tip of the nose and the edge of the upper front teeth. That should be 38 millimeters or very close to that for every adult male. But I have never ever seen someone with an indicator line of 38. Everybody is much over that, except for a few very good-looking film stars.
Aren't they lucky?
Do you know what yours is?
I'm not too sure. I should measure it.
I would say it's about 43. Measure it sometime.
I'll do that. That'd be a good video to do coming next. So my next question, where exactly should you feel the pressure when you're mewing?
I don't think you should feel any pressure anywhere. It is posture. You just position your tongue in your palate. This is what people do not understand. They think to move teeth, you have to push on them. That is absolutely wrong. Teeth will move on their own when they touch something. The pressure is so small, you cannot feel it. The pressure to move a tooth needs to be no more than 1 or 2 grams, and you can hardly feel that weight.
Okay. How fast can I see progress?
How fast?
Can you see progress?
It depends what age you are, what you're doing, and you can move teeth very quickly if you push on them, but it is bad for them. And in my experience, it usually shortens the life of the teeth. Teeth are not meant to be moved, but orthodontists do not understand that.
When mewing, is there meant to be more saliva being produced in the mouth?
I missed that, sorry. When mewing?
When mewing, is there meant to be more saliva being produced?
I don't know.
I think that comes from some people use the cue, like the psychological cue of suctioning the tongue against the roof of the mouth, and you keep it there by repeatedly swallowing saliva so that it's suctioned and you're swallowing saliva repeatedly.
Well, yes. Way back in the 1930s, there was a lot published about the negative pressure, which is suction, of course, on the palate with the tongue. I don't think they came to any definite conclusion, but definitely when mewing, I do suggest that people suck their tongue onto their palate as a simple way of holding it there. I don't think you do need to do that, but it is a simple way of placing the tongue, just very mild suction so that it holds itself into position.
At what age does mewing, if it does, slow down results, or does it stop results?
Well, mewing is a very slow process. I mean, after growth, the tissues would not normally move. But if you wish to try and catch up for growth which didn't take place. You can help it by mewing. Mewing is no more than a sort of catch-up process, and it will never achieve the ultimate. It will just get a small improvement. Most people's faces are over an inch, that's 25 millimeters, too far back. That is a huge difference. It goes for both you and me. Our faces would look totally different if our maxilla was in the right place. By mewing, you can get it to move forward maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. That's out of the 25. But it shows you can see that it is better.
Someone wants to know, can mewing help to even out asymmetry?
Yes, likely. Usually, the asymmetry is caused by bad posture. I would say always. Therefore, if you create good posture, it will improve. However, if the teeth are locked into position, say you had bad posture and your teeth have crossed over each other into another position, then mewing won't be able to cross them back. You'll have to have treatment.
Okay. Someone wants to know, one side of their face has more fat on the other side. Is that genetic?
I doubt if it does. I would say that he has a unilateral posture, and if he or she thinks carefully, they will feel that their tongue does not touch the teeth and gum in quite the same way on both sides.
Okay. In regards to that question, someone asked me, when I mew, my tongue is asymmetrical on my palate. How can I rectify this?
Well, it's a bit like the chicken and the egg. The tongue is asymmetric because the palate is asymmetric, but the palate is asymmetric because the tongue was asymmetric. So you really have to correct your posture, but it's very difficult to do that if you had the wrong posture for so long that the bones have moved out of position.
Someone wants to know, if I have a nightly retainer, will mewing during the day while wearing the retainer at night have any effects? Or is it worth completely removing the retainer?
The question of retainers is a very difficult question. Basically, orthodontists push teeth around, and afterwards the teeth want to go back to where they were. So an orthodontist will fit a retainer which will hold them in that position. But it's an entirely artificial position, and the teeth always want to go back. If you wear a retainer for 20 or 30 years, the effect can be quite dangerous because the bone is removed and you will get holes in the gum or clefting, which people see as gum recession. And that is the consequence of holding the teeth in an artificial position, or people do say out of their comfort zone.
How does the retainer compare to the BioBloc?
Well, you don't have retainers with BioBloc. You correct the posture, and if you correct the posture, then the teeth will never relapse. And that is one of the huge differences between BioBloc. All orthodontic treatment tends to relapse. But BioBloc treatment, the teeth stay where you put them. Forever. Provided the posture is right.
How much does a tongue tie limit mewing potential? Is it worth treating?
That is a long, complicated subject. You have to say, why do we have tongue ties? Are they born? Do they develop? Are they natural? Why didn't our ancestors have them? Why don't any animals have them? There are thousands of questions there, but essentially, I think that poor tongue posture causes tongue ties. I do not think that tongue ties cause poor tongue posture. But there are exceptions.
Is it normal for the tongue to relax and lower itself to the bottom of the mouth after each inhale while nose breathing?
Well, natural posture should be with the tongue on the palate, with the lips closed and the teeth either touching or nearly touching. Anything else is unnatural, but I mean, the tongue can adopt hundreds, if not thousands, of different positions. It's a very mobile organ.
In your own words, how do you actually mew? What is the technique for mewing?
You just keep your tongue on your palate with your lips together and your teeth in on ear contact. That is actually the tropic premise. And I wrote a paper on that in 1981, which was totally ignored by the profession. But now it's called mewing, and I'm told that we have 2.4 billion, not million, billion people who are currently interested in mewing.
And growing, and growing.
That's, I believe, about half the teenage population of the world.
If you could break down how to mew, how would you mew in 3 steps? How would you mew in 3 steps?
3 steps. I wouldn't try and do it in 3 steps. I do it in 1 step. Just keep your tongue lightly touching on your palate, your lips together, and your teeth in on ear contact. Now, what usually goes wrong is that the tongue touches the teeth, particularly when people swallow. They suck on the teeth. That moves the teeth out of position. And when you move the teeth out of position, the bone moves out of position. And because they suck, the whole face never grows forward. And as I say, about 90% of people, probably over that, have their upper jaw an inch too far back.
Okay. Besides mewing, what other factors or what other techniques could someone do to influence their craniofacial growth apart from mewing?
Well, I think only the tropic premise will create correct growth. There is no other way. People do it artificially with appliances and exercises, but only correct posture will create correct growth. There is no other alternative, in my view.
What are your thoughts on if someone has a very narrow palate and they want to get surgery in order to perform orthotropics easier? What do you think about that?
Well, it depends whether they can afford to have expansion. if the palate is very narrow, then in order to be able to mew properly, they will have to have it expanded. However, if you can put your tongue on your palate and make sure it stays there, even although your palate is narrow, then it will gradually widen just as a result of your posture. But that will take several years, and if you want to take a shortcut, you can have your palate expanded.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. Let's have a bit of a look here. Can correct body posture be achieved without the tongue on the roof of the mouth? And what is the relationship between the body posture and the tongue posture?
I think the two are quite separate. Not totally separate. People with good mouth posture usually have good body posture. But I think the two are separate, although often go together.
What about craniocervical posture?
I don't think it affects the main body of the cranium, but certainly people who, there's good evidence to show that people who bite food will have a wider skull, and indeed the pupils of their eyes will be wider apart, showing that it is cranial as well as facial.
Okay. Should the tongue be placed on the incisive papilla or behind?
I think the tip of the tongue should be just behind the incisive papilla. But you know where the rugae are, do you? They're the little bumps on the palate, just behind the incisive papilla. I think that the whole of the tip of the tongue should press on the rugae. I don't think it makes much difference, but the one thing, it mustn't touch the teeth.
Push them forward, which is not what we want. How hard should the teeth be together?
Oh,
when mewing?
During biting, very hard. But at rest, they should just be in very gentle contact or just apart, a neutral position. Many people talk of the freeway space. I think that has done a lot of damage to dentistry. Someone just after the last World War took some measurements and found that on average, most people's teeth were apart 2 or 3 millimeters. Therefore, they said that was normal. Yes, it is normal, but it is wrong.
Does mewing affect the cheekbones, the zygoma?
What about the zygoma?
Does mewing affect the zygomatic bones?
Yes, all the bones of the face are linked together.
Interesting. What about the ears? I mean, the ears are...
Yes.
Are they involved in mewing as well?
It affects the whole of the zygomatic and temporal bones. And the ear is attached to the temporal bone. So if the temporal bone has collapsed, the ears will stick out. Therefore, people who have small collapsed faces will have ears that stick out.
Like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
If the bone is the full width, the ears will lie flat against the side of the face.
Okay. It's a bit of an ambiguous question, but someone wants to know ways to help the face get shorter.
Sorry, say that again, looking at me.
Ways to get the face shorter. Ways to achieve a shorter face.
You mean height?
Yeah.
Well, that depends more on muscle tone.
What are your thoughts on surgery for people who have a significant downswing?
Well, sir, I don't know if you know, but I trained as an orthodontic surgeon when I came out of my dental school. But after about 3 or 4 years, I decided to switch to orthodontics. The problem with surgery is that it is not stable, particularly when carried out on the face. All the bones of the face are affected by posture. Therefore, if you do surgery to correct the shape caused by the bad posture, unless you correct the posture, the surgery will go back. It often relapses slowly, but they say the research shows that most surgery relapses halfway within 12 to 15 years. Well, to me, that means it's a waste of time having surgery, added to which the many other contraindications for surgery.
What are your thoughts on plastic surgery in general? Your own personal thoughts?
I think plastic surgery is fair enough. Lots of actresses and film stars have it just to get rid of the aging of the skin. One of the difficulties with this, and also with Botox, which you probably know of, is that it means that the face becomes less mobile. Therefore, you lose your character. I think people like me may have lots of wrinkles and folds, but at least I can show my character through my face. It may not look as good as it could, but at least it looks natural.
Okay. Someone wants to know, I have the mewing posture correct, but my biggest problem is uneven tongue sweeping. My swallowing is also a problem. Is there ways to correct this?
Well, I think what you're basically saying, or this patient saying, is that if as a child your posture is wrong, it's very difficult to change it as an adult. And there are two reasons for this. One is because the tongue reflexes become automatic. Your tongue reflexes are very, very quick, and they stop you biting your tongue. Every time you chew food, you put your tongue between your teeth and then bite hard. And yet you only occasionally bite on your tongue. That's because your tongue works automatically and very, very quickly. These are automatic processes and very difficult to change as an adult. That is why I use the stage 3 BioBloc. That was designed specially to correct oral posture. And it teaches the child to correct their posture while they are asleep at night. This controls the subconscious posture. And I think that the stage 3 appliance is the only true way to correct posture. I'm sure people one day will invent something better, but at the moment, I don't think there is another way to train a child's posture.
All right. Well, I would like to thank you very much for answering all of these questions, Professor John. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'd love to do it again. I'd love to do it again.
Right. Well, that's fine. You've certainly tested me, every single aspect, but essentially, clinicians do not appreciate posture. They talk of function, yes.
This concludes part 2 of the podcast. I'll be having some absolutely massive guests coming onto the channel soon. Check out some of the links in the bio, like and subscribe.